Hi, it's Bemi here. I simplify the complex science of behavior and teach you how to apply it to your everyday life. Wait, I'm your science teacher and you're my science student. Okay. Seriously though, I'm a behavior specialist. I know behavior. I have a degree in behavioral science. I'm board certified in applied behavior analysis. I know the science of behavior. Let me tell you real quick how I happened upon it. So I'm trying to be a therapist, yeah? So I went back to college and I stumbled upon the field of applied behavior analysis and I became fascinated by human behavior. I changed my major to behavioral science, graduated, became board certified in behavior analysis, and I started to apply the science to my everyday life, and the results were awesome as a parent, even in my personal life as a partner. And it became interesting, the results that I got, because I found out that the science that I read in the books and I could apply, working with kids in an autism clinic, or when I worked for FEMA as a disability integration advisor, I found that I could apply the science and I was getting results. And because I like to talk about my life a lot, I was sharing the results I was getting, and people were asking me questions and I was sharing what I was getting, and their feedback was awesome. People were applying the science and they were getting results. Parents would hit me up with questions about how to handle problem behavior. I started to teach parent groups and I started to coach on the side. So that's how I became Behavior Coach G. And I realized that although the science of behavior is complex, because the language is really technical, I know how to simplify it, right? I'm really, really good at that. So I know the science, I'm good at simplifying it. And one step further, I can teach you how to use the science today. I can teach you how to apply it right now to fix a pain point or a problem that you have. And so as I was helping more and more people, I realized that it made sense to distill that knowledge, to package it in a video like this, so that instead of repeating the science over and over, I could just share that video with you. So that's why I'm making this video, to teach you the science. Hopefully you can take something from this video and apply it to your life. If, however, you need coaching, then I coach on the side and I charge for my time, of course. But I wouldn't need to explain the science to you over and over again. You can just watch a video like this that I've made to teach a part of the science, and then you can either apply it to your life or pay me to coach you on how to apply it. Okay? The field of behavior science is wide. It's really, really huge, right? So I cannot distill all of that knowledge into one video. So I've been working on a course that can, teach all of that knowledge, but that's been taking a long time to get around to doing, because like I said, the science is a lot. So I've decided that instead of waiting until the course is all done, I'll make regular videos, and this is the first in a series of videos about the science of behavior I'm going to be making. So today we're going to talk about behavior and we're going to talk about the functions of behavior. Stay with me, you'll see why this is really important. Now, behavior is anything a living, breathing person can do. And it's really important to clarify that, because when we're talking about behavior, sometimes we're labeling emotions and we think we're talking about behavior. So ask yourself, is this something that a living, breathing person can do? Is it external? Is it measurable? Is it observable? Is it reportable? Then it's a behavior. So for example, if you say, she's giving me attitude, or he's acting depressed, are those behaviors, or are you describing internal feelings, which are emotions? So behavior must pass what we call the dead man's test. It's something a living, breathing person can do, which you can observe, which you can measure, and which you can record. Okay? Now let's talk about the functions of behavior. Every behavior has 4 functions. Yes, exactly 4. If you see somebody doing something, it's for one of 4 reasons. When you understand the functions of behavior, it will change the game for you in a major way. And let me tell you why. When you see something occurring, for example, when you see a child crying, your brain immediately kicks into perhaps solution mode, or maybe you're frustrated. I don't know why this child is crying. If you understand the function of the behavior, then you can know exactly what to do about that behavior, but you don't know why the child is crying. And when children are little humans, behavior is how they learn to communicate. They're uncomfortable, maybe because their diaper is full, they cry, you pick them up. They're hungry, they cry, you pick them up. They soon figure out that when they cry, which is when they engage in that behavior, they get a certain response from you. So because they want a certain response from you, they continue to engage in that behavior, because behavior is how they tell you what they want, right? Right. Now, in a perfect world, they will transition smoothly from crying to being able to verbalize, and then they'll be able to say, I want a drink, or I'm hungry, or I want a snack. But in the real world, it doesn't work like that. They have learned from when they're infants that when they behave a certain way, they can get a certain response, and so they behave in the ways that they behave to get a specific response. So what they want to get is why they're doing what they're doing. If you don't understand the 4 functions of behavior, you might think that this is why the person is doing what they're doing, and then become frustrated. So for example, if you're a big human with a little human, you see your little human crying and you think, oh, maybe their diaper needs to be changed. And then you change their diaper because you think that the function of crying is discomfort from a poop-filled diaper, right? You change that diaper and the little human continues to cry. What's the feeling you feel? Frustration and stress. You're like, what do you want from me? Can't you just say what you want? So you see where frustration can come from not understanding the functions of behavior. It's the same with the big human. You think that this person is doing what they're doing because they want something. You give them what they want, they still engage in that behavior, and you're like really confused. What do you want from me? So when you understand the functions of behavior, it will really change it for you. And today I will teach you what the 4 functions of behavior are. Stay with me. Okay, let's talk about functions of behavior. Every behavior occurs for one of 4 reasons: escape and avoidance, access to attention, access to a tangible item, or sensory or automatic. Therefore, the acronym EATS might help you remember easily: escape, attention, tangible, or sensory. I'll explain each one in detail. Let's talk about escape first. Now, the function of a behavior is escape if the person does it to get away from a non-preferred activity. For example, I have a report due or I have work to do, then I pick up my phone and I start to scroll my Twitter. The function of my behavior at that time is escape or avoidance of the non-preferred activity. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Or let's take a little human, for example. As soon as you put a worksheet or homework in front of them or tell them it's bedtime, that's when they remember that they need to go to the bathroom, they want to drink water, they want to hug you and tell you how much they love you. The function of the behavior at that time is escape or avoiding the non-preferred task. Now, escape can be a function for both desirable and non-desirable behaviors. For example, let's look at traffic laws. People don't obey them because they're upright. They obey traffic laws because they want to avoid fines or they want to avoid getting into trouble. So the function of the desirable behavior of obeying the traffic sign is escape. They're avoiding a traffic fine. Also, when people run red lights, the function of that behavior is escape because they don't want to wait. The non-desirable activity is waiting. So escape and avoidance can be the function for opposite behaviors, both desirable and non-desirable. It's important to clarify that. And as we go along and I explain more principles, it will make more sense to you. But just remember, if the function of the behavior is escape or avoidance, what you do following that behavior will determine if it increases or decreases. But it's important for you to know that that's the function of that behavior. Clear? Clear. So the next one we're going to talk about is attention. Now, the function of a behavior is attention when a person does it so they can get you to look at them. For example, when I post a nice photo on Instagram, so people can like it, I want people to look at me and say, oh, I look good. That's the function of the behavior. Or when a little human says, look, they've done something, maybe they made a painting, or they wrote a number, or they've learned a new skill, or they've done something that they know will impress you, and they giggle, or they say, look at me. They want you to give them attention. Or if it's an infant, for example, who doesn't have verbal skills yet, the infant squirms or giggles because nobody's paying attention to them. The function of that behavior is attention when it says, look at me. Now, it's important to clarify that attention is a legitimate need for all humans, both little and grown. I like to compare the attention tank to a stomach. Now, little humans have smaller tanks, and those tanks need to be filled regularly, unlike adults who can go for long periods without attention. And also, adults don't need to go through another human to get what they want. But little humans, they need to go through you to get what they want. So their behavior will be for attention in a different way from a big human. I'll explain that in detail. For example, if I want you to pay attention to me, I can pick up my phone and do it. If a child wants you to pay attention, they need to go through you. So the way a child will request for attention might be significantly different from the way an adult will request for attention, but the function of the behavior is still attention. And like I said before, it's a legitimate human need. And like the tank that I likened it to, children have a smaller attention tank. And so they will need that to be filled regularly. And so little humans will try everything, including resorting to inappropriate behaviors, to meet that need. So keep at the back of your mind that the need for attention is a legitimate human need. And if the behavior is for attention, all behavior for attention isn't necessarily bad. Because the need for attention is legitimate, people will try many different things to get it. So it's our job as big humans to teach our little humans that yes, your need for attention is legitimate, but this is the appropriate way to request attention. So for example, I want my child to be able to call my attention or to be able to address me when they need my attention, but I don't want my child hitting me to get my attention. So my job will be to recognize that when that child hits me or taps me like that, it's because they're trying to get my attention. So what do? I teach appropriate ways of requesting attention, which is, mommy, look at me. So it is not the attention that's the problem. The function of that tapping and hitting is to get you to look at them. So what do? Once you recognize that tapping and hitting is not because the child is a bad kid, is because the child is trying to get your attention, then you can teach appropriate ways of getting attention and know the appropriate intervention when the function of the behavior is attention. Does that make sense? It'll make more sense as we go along. Just stay with me. The next function is tangible. The function of a behavior is access to a tangible item when the person does it so that they can get something that's physical or tangible. For example, I go to work because I have to earn my paycheck. Or when a little human says, I want a toy, or I want candy, or an infant who doesn't have verbal skills yet cries to be fed. The function of that behavior is access to a tangible item. And it's important to distinguish it from access to attention because the interventions that follow are different. So the function of the behavior is access to a tangible item when the person does it because they want something. Now, as with attention, desiring access to a tangible item is a legitimate need. Both little humans and grown humans want what they want. The challenge though is that we can't always get what we want. Also, there are appropriate and inappropriate ways to get what we want. So while adults may understand this, that you're not always going to get what you want, but that doesn't come naturally to little humans. Waiting doesn't come naturally. We learn it as we grow. So that's what usually happens when you get to that stage, popularly known as the terrible twos, because that child wants what they want when they want it now. And remember, when they were little, all they had to do was cry and you will give them what they want. But as they're growing older, you have a dilemma. You're trying to teach this little human to wait, but this child is used to crying to get what they want. So they want access to a tangible item. They want their iPad, they want their toy, they want to watch TV, they want that snack when they want it. But as the big human, you can't feed them candy morning, afternoon, and night. So they resort to the behaviors they resort to because they want access to a tangible, item. Think about your little human as an infant, and you try to warm their bottle, but the bottle is too hot and that child is really, really crying, and they're like, I want to give you what you want, but you have to wait because I'm not trying to kill you with hot milk. So teaching appropriate requesting for access and appropriate waiting, those are the desirable behaviors that you want to teach. But the child wants what the child wants, and it gets progressively frustrating because they want what they want. They don't understand no. You're trying to teach no, so they throw a tantrum. You're frustrated because you don't know how to respond to the tantrum. They get even more frustrated, and then it escalates, and the frustration creates this what would I call it? This whole atmosphere of stress and tension, and you're like, my child is terrible, I can't deal, I wasn't planning to yell. If you're like me, you've probably cried a few times because you're like, I'm even exhausted and tired, I don't know what to do. Well, now you know that if you identify the function of the behavior, which is the first step, then you know the right intervention that will immediately follow that behavior to make the behavior either increase or reduce, which I will teach you in the next step in the series. But for now, you want to understand that the function of the behavior is access to a tangible item. Your intervention will be determined by recognizing, the functions. The last one is sensory or automatic. And that one's interesting because the function of that behavior is the behavior itself. Let me explain. The function of a behavior is automatic or sensory when the behavior in and of itself feels good. So the person does it just because. Now with the other functions, the person is engaging in that behavior to get something that feels good or to avoid something that doesn't feel good. With sensory, the behavior itself is its own reward. So for example, when I bite my nails or twirl my hair a lot, or when my little human sucks his thumb or sucks on her lower lip, the function of that behavior is automatic. The behavior itself feels good. So it's not to get something or get away from something. The behavior itself, it's its own reward. And sensory behaviors are unique in that they don't usually need the presence of another individual for them to occur, and they're often harmless. It's just that they might be socially significant, or they might pose long-term consequences. Like for example, a child might suck on their thumb, and you might say, oh, I don't like my child sucking on his thumb because he's going to grow into an adult that does that and other people will make fun of him. Well, that's socially significant and it might bother you, but it might have other long-term consequences. For example, if a child sucks on their thumb long enough, it will mess up their palate and it will affect their dentition, and they will start to have, dental problems, or their speech might even be affected or delayed. So the behavior occurs for its own gratification, it's important to clarify that, because the intervention appropriate for that behavior is determined by the function. Or, okay, we've talked about little humans sucking their thumbs. Let's say, what's a sensory automatic for adults? Okay, let's say an adult touches themselves for pleasure. Now, that behavior is sensory and automatic because it occurs, the behavior itself is reinforcing in and of itself, remember, and it doesn't usually need another human. The challenge, however, is that touching themselves inappropriately might become addictive, it might interfere with their regular relationships in real life. So sensory and automatic behaviors, remember, they are reinforcing in and of themselves, and the person doesn't need someone else to do it, and it's distinct because the intervention for it is different for if the function is attention, or if the function is escape, or if the function is tangible. I hope that's clear. So now that you know the functions of behavior, the next time you observe a behavior around you, or even your own behavior, the first thing you do is pause and determine what the function of the behavior is. When you know the function, then you can decide, do I want this behavior to increase, or do I want this behavior to decrease? This is really important because this is where the magic happens. The science and the psychology of learning is that what immediately follows the behavior will determine if it increases or reduces. But before we get to that stage, you must be able to identify the function of the behavior. So I'm going to give you homework. Look around you, look at yourself, observe behaviors, and ask yourself, what is the function of the behavior? Remember, the function is the same thing as the why. Why is this person doing what they're doing? Memorize the four. Remember, EATS: escape, attention, tangible, sensory. Every time you see a behavior, before you jump into a conclusion about why the behavior is occurring, pause. Ask yourself, clarify, what is the function of this behavior? When you master this, it will change the way you see behavior, the way you respond to behavior, and even your own behavior yourself, because when you recognize and understand the function of a behavior, you can determine what you will do immediately following that behavior to either increase it if it's a desirable behavior or reduce it if it's an undesirable behavior. If you have any questions, make sure you ask me in the comments, post the question, and I'll, try to explain and clarify. Okay? Thank you.